Senate Majority Whip Dick Durbin has broken with Majority Leader Chuck Schumer on the body's new dress code policy, saying he is concerned about the decision to loosen the Senate's dress code to allow senators to wear what they want on the floor, and that we need to have standards. While much of the focus on the dress code has been centered around Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, Durbin told SiriusXM's POTUS channel in an interview that will air today, quote, "The senator in question from Pennsylvania is a personal friend, but I think we need to have standards when it comes to what we're wearing on the floor of the Senate, and we're in the process of discussing that right now as to what those standards will be."
The Washington Post's Jeff Stein wrote on X yesterday, "Isn't it all up for debate that the Senate has by now spent more time discussing its dress code than the spike in child poverty in 2022?
Very fair. Congress is notoriously slow at everything, very ineffective. But I have to say I'm more in Dick Durbin's camp on the dress code. I do think at the very least, if we're going to have a bunch of people in Congress, which is supposed to be sort of a professional elite institution, even if they're not doing anything, I think the bare minimum is that you can wear a suit to work. And it's about perception, right? The way that we dress is about showing how people, or is changing how people perceive us. And I don't want a bunch of people running around in gym shorts and sweatshirts if they're supposed to be conceivably the leaders of the country.
I think I'm more concerned with how people act in their process of getting the job done than I am how they look when they do it. I know that this isn't totally a different segment when it comes to what we recently saw with Lauren Boebert, for instance, being somebody who's essentially, for lack of a better term, giving a hand job at an actual outing where families are, for Beetlejuice. That was a little weird. I'm more concerned with people who do not live up to the ideals of leadership than I am individuals who may dress outside of wearing a suit and tie every day. Can he still get the job done? John Fetterman is who the target is on in this case. Can he still get the job done? Does he still show up for votes? Does he have the conversations that are necessary? He recently had one on how he was basically derided for his disability, needing to have aided conversation tools post his stroke by a caucus that typically is supposed to be uplifting elements of technology and elements of resources for those who are disabled, and he was getting mocked within his own body. I think that at this point in our nation's history, respectability politics aside, we should be at a place where the Senate's job, Congress's job, is to get the job of America done. If you can do that in a jogging suit, more power to you. Right now, we have a bunch of people in suits who can't do it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I definitely would prefer that people do the job and get things done and behave in a respectable manner as opposed to wearing respectable dress. But I don't think there's any reason why we can't do both. And I do have a problem with John Fetterman standing in the doorway of the Senate floor to record his votes because he's too lazy to change out of his oversized hoodie. That just doesn't speak well to me. I feel like it's lazy. I don't know why it's that hard to put a suit on. And it makes me question, I think, the commitment to serving if you're not able to abide by the dress code to the point that they actually have to change it for you.
I guess my question would be, does anybody question the commitment of tech giants who have worn hoodies since the dawn of the new era and are still designing and creating some of the technologies that are used across the globe? Do people question those individuals and their ability because they were able to do their job or they presented a hoodie? Did we question tech giants who literally wore the same thing all the time? We talk about Steve Jobs, he wore me out with that black tee. You would never catch that man in a suit, but we don't deny his ability to get the job done that he came to do and to invent some of the things and to work through some of the things that are advancements that we use around the world. I think that, the dress code that you come in with does not determine the output of your ability. And this conversation around the Senate, whose job is to do a lot more than to determine what your dress code is. This is not K-12. We should not be deciding what somebody can show up to at work. Can you get the job done or not? And I think that there is something to be said about acknowledging that we have the highest child poverty rate of the developed world, period, in the richest nation on earth. That is disappointing. That the Senate had the opportunity that Republicans basically kind of threw rig-shot for to ensure that children were able to be fed across this country, to ensure that the child tax credits were extended, to ensure that that was part of, and it was part of Biden's agenda, and it was shut down by Republicans. There is a lot that the Senate is tasked to do. One of those things should not be telling people how to dress when they show up to work. just get to work.
I think my issue is that there are all kinds of scenarios in society where we're expected to dress to a certain level, whether it's attending somebody's wedding or going to a funeral or showing up to work. And the Senate floor is your job. And so I think these people should be expected to dress professionally. Your point about the tech leaders is well taken. I can't stand the way Mark Zuckerberg dresses. It drives me crazy. That being said, of course, they're held to a different standard because they're the head of their company, right? They get to create the rules. In this case, the rules were bended for one member who didn't want to abide by them. And I think that's where I have the problem. And to me, it seems like a larger trend of Democrats going too far to accommodate somebody who clearly has not recovered completely from his stroke. And I'm not talking about the aids for his auditory processing issues. I'm talking about the fact that he was essentially doing his job through his staff members while he was at a stay in Walter Reed Hospital, and the fact that he was unable to get through a full campaign event when he was on the trail in Pennsylvania. I feel like the Democrats did him a disservice. They should have asked him to step aside and take care of his health and his family first before running for the Senate, and they should have replaced him when they still had the opportunity with someone who was physically capable of doing the job.
Are Republicans asking the same of Mitch McConnell?
Yes, and I have on this show multiple times.
And that's the only reason I asked that. And I know that it's a small group of voices. It's not his caucus. It's a small group of voices, more so whispers than anything else. But when he is having his issues that seem to be stroke related, and cannot get through sentences and is frozen, literally, the argument can be made that he also, a lot of his staff has basically buttressed his issues related to not being able to complete things. And they have, to their credit, they've done an amazing job of it because he's still highly effective. But I think that when it comes to individuals on both sides of the aisle who have health issues, unless those health issues are long-term preventing you from doing your daily job, I would not argue that you need to be removed. Because if that happens to be the case, I think ageism comes into play. But the secondary thing to that is you having a stroke is not dependent on age. I know people in their 20s who've had strokes. I have a friend right now who is battling brain cancer and is still going to work every single day with literally a part of her brain that was taken out. We have to be very careful about how we talk about health issues and the remedies to people still being able to do their job, but also recognizing that this is a growing issue across America. This is not one that just affects the Senate.
No, and it's not partisan. To your point, Mitch McConnell is absolutely an example. If you're somebody who is a politician and part of your job is delivering a message or communicating with the American people what it is you intend to do or what you've done, and your staff has to drag you off of the stage so that you can recover yourself, that's not acceptable to me. It's really not. And clearly Mitch McConnell, I think, is waiting for this governor race to finish up. He wants Daniel Cameron to win because Andy Beshear has already sent the signal that he would maybe not replace McConnell with one of the Republican picks as is required by Kentucky law. He is intending to apparently challenge that law. And it's the same issue with Dianne Feinstein, who's sitting in on these hearings. She's supposed to sign a bill or say aye to vote for a bill, and her staff has to literally tell her what to say. She's sitting there going, giving a speech, and her staff says, just say aye, just say aye. That shouldn't even count as a legitimate vote for a bill if she doesn't know what she's saying aye to or when she's supposed to do that. I mean, all three of those senators are examples of people who I don't think really have any business sitting there voting on behalf of the American people. I mean, when Fetterman was going through his severe clinical depression and undergoing treatment at Walter Reed, I don't think he should have been able to vote when he was in that condition, when he had staff essentially propping up his role. I don't think the American people feel confident or comfortable with their politicians who are suffering these ailments that do affect brain function, sitting in there and behaving the way that they elected them to behave. You just can't count on that with these various issues. And I agree with you, it's not an age problem, because there are plenty of people who are the same age as Mitch McConnell or some of those other senators, maybe not Dianne Feinstein, I think she's 90 years old, who are smart as a whip, right? They still have everything intact. They're ready to go. And there are younger people who drop dead of a heart attack when they're 50 years old. You can't guarantee physical health dependent on age. However, with the growing distrust in our institutions, which we've talked about earlier on this program, to see three individuals who are clearly suffering with their physical and mental health and perhaps unable to do the job, we need to have a serious conversation about at what point those people should be removed, or their own parties have the responsibility responsibility to make sure that they are replaced with somebody who can do the job fully.
No, I think I absolutely agree with you on that. I would argue that Feinstein's case is slightly different from the other ones that we mentioned because the functionality and just the sheer amount of votes that she has missed render her ineffective.
She's definitely the worst.
Yeah, it has been high time for quite some time for Dianne Feinstein to be replaced. Great work that she's done. She's got a strong record, but that time has come, and the recognition of it has to be there as well.
Yeah, exactly. And to see that politicians across both sides, to keep these people in for presumably the goal of keeping power, like in the Mitch McConnell case, we talked about the Kentucky governor race. And then in the Feinstein case, Pelosi apparently wants to be able to make sure Adam Schiff gets her position as opposed to an appointment from Governor Gavin Newsom. I mean, both of those are just reprehensible. Like let's take care of people and let's make sure that the American people are represented properly instead of playing this political game of I want to make sure the person that I like the most is in power. It drives me absolutely crazy. And I know the American people see this too, and they see the power grab over having the interests of Americans in the hearts of these politicians. Well, we're going to take a break and be back with more Rising after this.